I hope you are excited. We are moving along in this journey. When distance learning, you guys were working on fractions. And from there, we moved to telling time. And together we learned how to tell time on a digital and an analog clock. And then we moved to counting money, and you all learned how to identify coins such as pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and also a dollar. And you learned how to count that money, either lower than $1 or over $1, and solve problems involving that money as well. Now, we are moving on to Unit 12. And Unit 12, your goal is to be able to work with equal groups of objects. So as you're working with equal groups of objects, we can use some of those skills, such as skip counting, to help us count our equal groups. Remember, in time, you learned how to skip count, or you reviewed and used skip counting by fives. Then when you were counting money, you counted by ones, fives, tens, and even 25. And then now, with our equal groups, we're going to be able to skip count or add to help us solve our problems. So before we get started, I'm going to do a little warm-up activity, and I want you to think really hard. We are going to count by tens. I'm going to give you a number to start at, and when I point up, you will count by that number going up. When I close my fist, you will stop, and when I point down, you will count down. So let's start at 50 and count up. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Now let's go up by fives. Malia, you want to join in for this one? We're at 20 and we're counting up by fives. 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. 55, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, 0. Now let's go up by twos this time. We were at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10. Great job. So we skip counted, and skip counting can help us in a couple of different ways. So we have two words that I really want to focus on today: rows and columns. When you are partitioning a shape, partitioning a rectangle, for example, you want to partition it into rows and columns, and partitioning was worked on in our fractions unit. So hopefully you're seeing how lots of these things come together to help us with our learning. Now, suppose it's my birthday and I have a birthday cake. I have baked a cake and it looks yummy like this. Now, I have all my friends at my party and I need to cut this cake. It's a rectangular shape and I want to cut it into rows and columns so that I can make sure I can feed everyone at my party. So if I took this shape and I use squares to help me count it out, I would know how many people I could feed at my party. Now, even though I have this cake, I'm going to use this one here as our example. And I want to partition it, again, into rows and columns. So I have some squares. Before I forget, if you do not have squares, you can find these online. You could just type in 1-inch squares and have a parent print them. Or maybe you can have your teacher could give you, if they haven't already, some square tiles to bring home and work with. Or even if you have any square shaped cubes or Legos at home, something that you could use to kind of fill a shape, that would be very helpful. But if not, it's okay. We're just going to work with these. So I'm starting here, and I'm going to fill this shape up, and then we'll talk about the rows and columns of the rectangle. Notice as I'm filling the shape, I'm keeping my squares organized. I'm not putting one on the side and one on this side. It helps to keep them organized and lay them flat, side by side. Try not to have any gaps if possible. Great. So now that our rectangle is filled up, I know that when I'm going horizontally, these are my rows. Rows go side to side, left to right, or horizontally. When I have up and down or vertically, I'm discussing my columns. So here we have 2 rows, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 in each row, or 4 columns. Remember, those are our terms that we're working on, rows and columns. So 2 rows, 4 columns. And we counted 8 squares all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 squares that filled this up. Remember that skip counting we were talking about? I see I have 2 rows, so I could skip count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. And I now know again there's 8 squares in this rectangle. Or I could count by 4s if I'm able to. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Either way, we get 8 squares in this rectangle. Let's try another one. Okay, so we're here, we have another rectangle. Let's pretend this rectangle is a pan of brownies. So this square pan of brownies that I've baked and I want to share with my friends, I'm going to again fill up with squares nice and organized, so then I can count how many square pieces I can share. Okay, so my rows again are horizontal and I have 1, 2, 3 rows, or my columns go vertically and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So 3 rows, 4 columns. And I want to know how many altogether. So I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I know there are 12 squares in this rectangle. I could also count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12. Or maybe we can count by 4. 4, 8, 12. So you see, boys and girls, either way I'm counting. I'm counting my rows, I'm counting my columns, or I'm adding them together one by one until I get my total amount. Okay, we have one more rectangle to try. So again, I have my rows and my columns, and I'm filling it up so far. We notice 1, 2, 3. So I know I'm going to have 3 rows, but I don't know how many columns I'm going to have. So far we have 4 columns. Again, we want them as organized as possible, trying not to have any gaps. I may have cut them a little off, so some may not be exact, and that's okay. as long as we are getting the idea, we want to try to make them exact or as close as possible. But the most important thing is that we are counting each square that fills up the space. Okay. So again, we have 3 rows. Let's see how many columns we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 columns and 3 rows. This time I'm going to write it there. 3 rows, 8 columns. So the best thing I could do is start by counting all of my squares, because I know I can count by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I have 24 squares. There we go. Since we said we had 3 rows, we could also count by threes if we are able to. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and I still got 24. I also want you to start to think, is there a way we could write an addition sentence to help us solve this problem or figure out how many squares we have? Are you thinking we could add our 8 columns 3 times? 8 plus 8 plus 8. Okay, so we had 8 plus 8 plus 8. And that gives us 24. Could we do 3 plus 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 3? Yes, we could. So we could also add those 3. So either way, we want to use our goal of counting the equal groups. We're using skip counting strategies, and we're counting and partitioning our rectangle and filling up our shapes. I hope this was helpful. Remember to go in your Canvas and work on the work that's there. You will see more examples of how to partition rectangles and count the squares. Bye guys. Maybe I'm gonna enjoy my cake. See you soon.